Let's start off with why. Why am I teaching a free 3-part series on scaling through 7 figures? And I'm going to tell you 2 things. Number 1, I have my holy answer, and the number 2, I have my hood answer, right? Because I'm 50% holy and 50% hood. And I'm going to tell you that the holy, noble answer is I'm creating the thing I wish I had as I started my scaling journey. That's the truth. I wish there was somebody who was creating content on how to scale my business because I was literally Googling my way through it. So I thought, what if I'd use this as an opportunity to share some of the lessons and the pitfalls and the systems I have created alongside a great team that has really helped us expedite growth? That's the holy answer. And here's the hood answer. This is where I'm just going to be real with you, is I learn the most by teaching others. And so what I'm going to do, and what this has really invited myself and the team to do, is to really put words around the journey. And the better I am with my words, and the better I am with storytelling, and the better I become building businesses, the greater and the bigger my business becomes. So that's where we're going to start. We're just going to start with the moment of realness. And so I'm going to start by saying, when you are building a 7 and 7+ figure business, or in my case, multiple 7-figure businesses, there's a lot of pitfalls that come. And I'm going to start here with the main thing. And the main thing is your system can only scale to how good your processes are. Your business can only scale to how good your processes and your systems are. So if you're here and and what I have seen is over the past month or so, probably 2 months now, I have interviewed 6-figure business owners, 7-figure business owners, and 8-figure business owners. I'm having a lot of conversations. I am learning and I'm spotting patterns. And what I will say is I intended that these live classes were going to be serving 7-figure business owners in a very specific way because the pattern I have seen had been crystal clear. And the pattern is this: you can muscle your way, fight your way, break your back to about 1.2 or 1.3 million. You can do that with the help of 2 virtual assistants. And then all of a sudden, that seems to be the tipping point in a business, so that your only options are, I'm going to burn the wick at both ends and I'm going to burn out in order for me to grow, or the business is going to crumble. Why? Because it's at that point where you're keeping everything on the inside of your head and broken systems that have gotten you to this point. You're like, I can't slow down. I can't stop what I'm doing. Well, that was me. And I have to tell you that the minute I slowed down to create the systems is when we created massive jumps in scale. So if you're ready to dive in, that's what we're going to do right about now. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to get this going. Cool. Great. We're here in action. So we're going to be focusing on the time management framework that has actually moved the needle in my business. And what we're really going to be focusing on is the complexity of your business. I first want to say, congratulations. Do you know that only 4% of businesses ever reach $1 million in revenue? 4%. If you're a female, 0.7% of female-started businesses will ever cross $1 million. That's you. Congratulations. So as your business grows, it becomes more complex. There's more projects to do. There's more people to manage. There's more ways to communicate, right? There was a point where I was communicating with my very small team with email, Slack, text, Asana, Notion, and everybody was kind of finding their own way to make sure that everybody had what they needed. And what I realized was there was more balls to drop. And the more people I added to the team, the more I began to experience fissures in communication. And the fissures of communication are going to break the best of foundations. So I do a lot of training. I do a lot of studying. And I sat through a class by a gentleman and author by the name of Nick Sonnenberg. And he's going to be a future podcast guest because he's that amazing. And he shared this communication challenge graph with us. So when you're starting your business and it's you and maybe two VAs, right? This is you getting from like that 0 to 1,000,000. Or even if you have two W-2s, right? Well, there's 3 forms of communication. You talking to 2 other people, that person talking to 2 other people, and that person talking to 2 other people. But when your team moves to 5 people, there's actually 10 ways to communicate. And you can already see how you're going to have missed lines of communication. Now, as you get into high 7 figures, as you get into like that $3 million range to the $4 million range, you're going to start seeing your team grow from, depending on the type of business you have, anywhere from 10 to 25 employees. And even when you have 10 employees, there's 45 ways to communicate with people. So you can see more people add more complexity. And so I learned to manage just barely. But by the time I hit that 1.3, 1.4, I realized that owning this type of business was an entirely new game. That what got me to that point was not going to get me to the next point. And when I look at phases of growth, and a lot of what I have been studying and a lot of the communication I've seen is that getting from 1 million to 3 million is going to be your next biggest hurdle. And getting from 3 million to 10 million, yes, it's difficult, but by the time you're getting from that 3 million to 10 million, you're hiring a different type of entrepreneur. You're hiring a different type of employee. The person that you're hiring between that 3 to 10 million, they're what you call a specialist. They're a scalpel. And the people that you're hiring anywhere from like that 850,000 to about 3 million, they're a Swiss Army knife. They're really good and they're powerful and they could do a lot of things well, but they can't do one thing the best. When you start getting into that $5 to $10 million, you realize you're going to hire a specialist. You're hiring scalpels, people who do that one thing incredibly well. And that's going to change the rate at which you grow. Now, I will say that time felt a little bit impossible to come by when I first crossed that 7-figure threshold. And the reality was when you hit 7 figures and then you hit that, 2 million mark and the 3 million mark, it increased complexity, which was leading to only one of 2 things. My wrong way of doing it. Okay, I'm gonna say it was wrong. I was trying to figure it out. It was the Wild West or it was micromanager. So here is how you know you're a Wild West entrepreneur, a Wild West CEO. Everything is everywhere, and you can never find out what you need when you need it. Wait, did we have that in Dropbox or was that Google Drive? Wait a minute, where are we keeping that one? And then what's the communication like? And where are we uploading that to? Does that sound at all familiar? Because of this, deadlines were missed because if somebody happens to be working at 5 p.m. and somebody has already left, we have an online business and somebody's in Slack and says, hey, does anybody know where this is? And nobody's responding to that person. Well, they don't get a response until the next day, which already missed the deadline. And so now we're waiting a whole other day to kick things off. Balls are dropped. You feel that maybe you feel, or maybe your teams feel that you're out of the loop. And you spend, as a CEO, most days putting out fires. There was a time I told my husband and my business partner, I said, I literally feel like I'm a captain of a fire department. I'm out here putting out fires every day that I'm actually not thinking how to build. I'm so concerned to put out the fires, I'm not actually thinking, how do we build this building? And then what happened was I shifted into a different phase of like, okay, if I don't want to put out fires, then what I need to do is I need to manage. And I didn't say I need to be a micromanager. What I said was, oh, I need to have my eyes on everything. Well, what happens is that there's these unnecessary checks and balances for the smallest task. Just making sure you followed up with that. Okay, great, thanks. Long meetings. Okay, have you ever felt in like this 1-hour meeting could have been 13 minutes? And then I started realizing that people who were not pertinent to the meeting, they said, well, we needed to be in the meeting because we need to know everything that's going on. And so it became a meeting ruled by the entire tribe instead of saying, well, who are the chiefs? Who own this project? And who do we need to convey that to? Communication for a task, like some people are communicating in Asana and some people are tagging in Notion and some people are on Slack, or some people are like, did you get my text message? And then it's did you get my Slack message? And it's a text message. And I'm like, this is so much. You spend your day keeping track of everything that you find that you don't have to actually time to grow the business or to innovate. Your job as the CEO is to do one of 2 things. To do 2 things at once. Manage cash, follow the vision. manage cash, follow the vision. And it's in that order because a lot of times you could follow the vision, but if you run out of cash, you can no longer deploy against the vision. So for me, it has always been manage cash, focus on vision. And when you are micromanaging or when it's the Wild West, you can't do those things. So I realized I needed new strategies specifically for managing my time if I wanted to break that cycle. And if you're here today, even if you're at that $6 million mark, there are ways that we can break cycles, repair the foundation as we scale up through 8 figures. Now, over the years, I have developed a 5-part time management framework that allows me to get more done in less time, and the business continues to get more complex. So if you are with me right about here and you're saying, I want to get more done, I want to get more done in less time, and I have a feeling because I'm an entrepreneur, I want to grow my business in new ways. New ways means complexity, but what if we have a foundation? I'm going to share with you a framework so that you can start getting back your time so you're working in your business. So you're no longer working in your business, you're working on your business. Now, I'm going to tell you straight out, because this is what I wish somebody told me, is that implementing this framework, it feels like you're slowing down. And you might feel like you're wasting time when you're like, no, Jasmine, what I really need is I need to fix my marketing. I need to fix my growth strategies. I need to sit with my sales team and we need to drive. I understand that too, and I was absolutely there. But let me tell you, without having a foundation, you will, because you're powerful and you're smart and you're talented, you will fix the marketing. You will grow those sales. You will focus on those growth strategies. And you will always come back to this point because the foundation is on sand. It is not on concrete. So if anything right now, this is an invitation for you to slow down, fix the foundation, and then rise. So my mentor told me this. I joined my very first mastermind in 2015, 2016, and it was a mastermind for 6-figure entrepreneurs. And during that time, I had launched a new arm of my business in new ways that resulted in a new $1 million revenue stream in less than 12 months. And I was like, great, we have this other arms of the businesses. We added this, we're going to go. And he said, you need to slow down before you speed up. And then the next year, he offered a 7-figure mastermind, which I had qualified for. And so in the 7-figure mastermind, he said the same thing, that the foundations you built as a 6-figure business owner are going to be very different as you build them as a 7-figure business owner. So 5 steps. Number 1, create a clear organizational chart and update or clarify all job descriptions. Now, I know this seems so boring, but I am telling you, it will radically change the way people are asking you as a CEO. There was a time in the business where everybody was asking me questions. And it wasn't until we created a very clear org chart and updated the org chart and said, if you have a question, you have to go to the person who's higher on the org chart. And now I have 2 direct reports. One on the org chart is listed as our COO. And I now have a president of social curator. Anytime she needs direct access to me, there's no bars held. She gets to come straight. Any other questions, you want to go to your direct report. Now, you have to make sure that everybody on your team, including yourself, knows exactly what are they responsible for and who do they report to? Because the first question will always go back to, well, did you ask X? Did you ask the person who has foresight over your project? Because when you get crystal clear on what they're responsible for and who they report to, you're gonna be able to spot the breakdowns in expectations or communications. The bigger the team gets, the more opportunities for the cracks to exist. But when you have organization, you could say, hey, did this happen? Did this happen? Did this happen? Boom, you spot it, you fix it, and you amend. Now, if anybody on your team is uncertain about who does what, this is where the inefficiencies stack up. I'll never forget, we had this one time where there was a task to create a keynote presentation. Like you might design it in Canva or in Keynote. And because people were not communicating correctly who was responsible for what, 2 graphic designers worked on the one keynote together at one time. I was paying 2 people to work on one project, taking double the amount of time. Do you know when we're talking about inefficiencies? Oh my goodness. And because two people were working on it, well, there's more likelihood that it's going to be late. It might not get done at all. Or, like in my case, multiple people doing it multiple times or doing it together. Friends. Okay. So, because this is all about action and getting very specific, when I was putting out job descriptions, so we created our org chart, and then I started saying, oh, I'm going to need to hire for this role. This is a gap in the organization. I would put out a job description and I would leave it to the best of my ability. And then I would realize I'm not attracting the type of candidates that I need. And so now what I'm about to show you is an example for a role description for our content director. This is how specific we have learned to get. Own and champion the organic social media presence for both brands, the Jasmine Star brand and the Social Curator brand, which includes LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. The organic strategy to build awareness for these brands through a mix of long form and short form content. Create instructional marketing content for our users so knowledge of social media marketing is a must. Create a multi-channel content strategy that supports business objectives with a focus across the buyer's journey. Oversee all written video and audio content production, providing guidance and feedback during the production phase to multiple contractors. Ideate and create copy for conversion-focused email funnels, websites, landing pages, sales pages. Design, test, and scale best-in-class content initiatives that directly impact nurturing, conversion, and retention across the customer journey. Reporting and operations. You will ensure that marketing content strategies are fully integrated across channels and delivered on time, on budget, measured, and evaluated. You will collaborate with the larger marketing team to test initiatives and implement changes. In addition to that, we say, here's the result we're looking for. The more specific we became with understanding who we needed to bring in the organization, the better the team got. But we couldn't actually figure out who we needed to hire that was going to really be like push the main domino or be the biggest lever to pull until we redesigned the org chart. And we get very specific with each of these points. So step number 2 is to create communication protocols and expectations. Again, here, Nick Sonnenberg really helped me distill down what there was going to be. And Nick actually had the book all about creating systems and operations that I cannot endorse enough. So what you want to do is clearly define the types of communication you have in your business and where each takes place. This was a big lever for us. So here are some examples. In team, when we're communicating in the team, well, we use Slack. When we are communicating externally outside of the organization, we use email. For emergency communications and only an emergency, we can text a team member. So this enabled streamlined communications across your team. In fact, there was a time where people on the team would text me questions that they needed to answer quickly. And my response then had to become, hey, I see this. Can you add this in Slack so the rest of the team can see it? What I needed to do was scale communications and then guide people. This is the way we do it now. And this also really stopped a lot of like those multiple pinging, just following up from that Slack message. Hey, in Asana, tagging it in Notion, following up here. And you're like, just in case everybody sees it. But what happens is you get notification burnout. What we wanted to do was to create clear expectations for response times from the team. Like how frequently, we literally had to say, this is how often we expect you to respond. Now, I'm focusing more of this conversation on working with virtual teams. Right now, there's a lot of hybrid going on, but I have 100% virtual team. So we had to be very clear, since there's no water cooler and there's no like conference room, how much are we communicating? Now, here's our expectations. In our team communications, we want to check Slack at least 3 times a day. And you're going to be expected to respond to all messages within 24 business hours. In my opinion, this is very wide and it's very gracious. A lot of times the team is responding same day for the needs, but our expectation is checking it 3 times and responding within 24 hours. External communications, we're going to ask our team, hey team, you need to check your email at least once a day, and you need to be responding within 24 hours. We also have an expectation. If we're going away on a holiday or you're going to be out of office, our expectation is that you set standards on an autoresponder when people can expect you. And that's all this is about. What are the clear expectations of your team? As you scale to 8 figures, the clearer the expectation will be, the easier it is to hold people accountable. Now, what we wanted to do by saying, hey, we don't expect you to be on Slack all day, because when you're checking out and you're doing that deep work that I'm fully focused, don't worry, we're not expecting you to respond within 5 minutes. And it allows the team to be accountable as needed. Like, hey, we followed up on Friday morning and it's now end of day Monday. When can we expect a response? Step 3 is to create clear plans for your meetings. Oh, y'all, this is where all of us take a deep collective breath. When you have like a team of 20 people and you're like, oh, it's just another meeting. When you're looking at your calendar and you're like, yay, the third meeting of the day. How do you get out of that as a CEO? Well, you begin with an audit of your meetings. I want you to ask yourself, is every meeting moving the business forward? If not, remove it. There were times in the business where we created a weekly meeting because it was needed. And then maybe I didn't have the wherewithal, I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the courage as a leader to say, you guys, this meeting is no longer necessary. I was worried about how the person who was leading the meeting, how it's going to feel. Was they going to let them down? Were they going to feel disappointed that we're no longer as close and as needed? And in fact, what we now say is anytime we can cancel a meeting and move that clear communication in Slack, you're winning. We've become so efficient on our systems, we trust that everything will be communicated with. Are there meetings that should be shortened? Our weekly meetings used to be an hour, and then we just realized, no. We can still get everything we need to get done in 30 minutes. Change to 30 minutes. Are there meetings that could be replaced with a pre-recorded video? If so, make it a practice to send a video update instead of calling a meeting. Now, on our team, we live by video communication. And here's a few reasons why. If the meeting is necessary, consider sending a pre-recorded video outlining the key background or give context, give a way for people to be prepared to the meeting, and then they can be focused on problem solving. What I do not want to happen in meetings is somebody shows up and says, let me lay out all the facts. Let me tell a story. Let me tell you why it's important. We do not all need to be together to hear that. What we need to be together on is thinking how we all solve the problem, get a result. But the key details, send a video, we save time, we all get to watch it on our own time. And here's a couple other benefits. People say I talk fast. I don't believe that's the case. There's very few people on the team who could watch my videos at 2x speed. That's okay. There are some people who need to watch my videos on the team at 0.5 speed. They need to slow me down. It's all good. When you have a pre-recorded video, the standard of communication is much sharper. I'm going to say what I mean. I'm going to mean what I say. Here are all the key details. And the team gets to watch it. If I send a 6-minute video, they can watch it at 2x and get it done in 3 minutes. We're saving so much time on meetings. And we all learn differently. There are some people who are brilliant, but they process differently and slower. This gives them the time to go up to the meeting, to bring concerns, to bring ideas, and then we hit the ground running. So if you want to start creating more efficient meetings, we do not schedule meetings for more than 30 minutes. If it goes over 30 minutes, that's fine, but we do not need to add extra minutes. In fact, Gary Vaynerchuk, the entire meeting default at VaynerMedia is 15 minutes. Every meeting should be 15 minutes or less. Right now we're at 30 minutes. Hopefully we'll get to the 15, but we've really changed what that standard is. And excuse me, you want to prepare your agenda prior. So for every Monday, we have a team meeting. On Friday, the team knows to go into the document and update what we are going to be discussing on our Monday meeting. So this Monday meeting agenda is broken up into 2 sections, and people are filling it out in advance. Section number 1 is inform items. I'm informing the team what they need to know and discuss items. So inform items, they're just FYIs. We don't need to discuss them. This is like, oh, the status of this project. I followed up with this person as an FYI. This is what we're doing as a community. FYI, this project's in motion. We're not discussing them, but we get to see, oh, okay, Rosie's doing this, Katie's doing this, Whitney's doing this. So we get to see everybody out. Now, meeting participants are expected to read them before the call. And if they have any questions, you can just type it there in the document. Hey, did you think about this? And if that person answers and nothing else is needed, we don't need to discuss it. Now, discussion topics are clear items that need to be discussed. So maybe we need extensive background for the entire team discussion. Team members are going to be asked to send a video ahead of time, ahead of the meeting, so we can focus on problem solving. So let's give a real example. Last week, there was an inform item about the 7-figure accelerator. Just letting you know, everything's on dialed in. We have all of our content. We're going to be starting ads. That was informed. There's nothing we needed to know. Last Monday at our team meeting, it was a discussion topic. FYI, this is the Zoom setup. This is our FAQ doc. Who's going to be supporting in chat? What is the subsequent customer success tickets that we might receive? How do we best anticipate needs? How do we show up on social? What are the social posts? When are they going to be timed out? What are we doing to screenshot testimonials? That was fully team think discussion items. And just as a reminder, we're going to get into Q&A at the end. If you have questions and clarity, please. Doing this is literally the team and I saying, how do we serve people? Like, how do we make what we wished we had 6 years ago? This is us. Step 4, creating SOPs and operating. These are standard operating procedures. Now, here's the thing that I have learned. And I fell into the same trap. 6-figure business owners hate SOPs. 7-figure business owners love them. Put them on a shrine. We want to dip them in gold and set them on our mantle like a pride little trophy. I tell the team, the better your SOP is, ooh, man, it is just good. Good SOPs. So we have SOPs. They allow you to do things. They allow you to quickly onboard and train new employees. Time is money. You want to get them up to speed as fast as possible. And when you show them the caliber that you are expecting them to come into, whoa, no games. This is the level. We're already setting the bar when they're doing their onboarding. We're going to hold teams accountable for the work that they're doing and how they're doing it. I don't know if you've ever been that manager or if you've ever had that manager who says, so what I feel is this isn't happening. I hate that. I do not want anyone on our team to look across from somebody and say, so I feel like you're missing the mark. I don't care about your feelings, Susan. I want you to tell me where, how, what was the mark. The SOP removes emotionality, removes opinion, and says, hey, this is what we've outlined in the SOP, and this is the part you missed. And on the SOP, it denotes it should take about this amount of time. And so here, you missed this step, and it's taking you double the amount of time. How might we reconcile? Is there a reason? How could we fix this? And the best thing about SOPs is in fact, just before this call, I did an interview for an executive assistant role that I'm hiring for. And she said, Jasmine, I'm very operationally driven. Oh, music to my ears. I didn't say anything. I was like, keep it cool, but I was really about to give her an engagement ring. And she said, what I don't want to do is I don't want to come into Slack and give advice around certain procedures as I'm, onboarding. What if I think or find a way that we might be able to improve it since I'm so operationally driven? And I said, that might have been the case with anybody you've ever worked with before, but I am telling you, we actually hold you responsible for telling us how we can make it better. We want you looking at our systems. We want you looking at our SOPs. The better our SOPs become, the faster we grow. And the faster we grow, it benefits everybody. So we aren't afraid. We're actually asking you to tell us so that we grow. And we get to quickly train current team members on a process if another team member is out. This is how you know your SOP is chef's kiss. If you take team member A and team member B, and there's a project going, and for some reason, team member A gets sick and they're out, and it's a really important project that is on a deadline. Well, the SOP must be so good that team player B, who's unfamiliar, can come in, go to the SOP and follow the steps and achieve the same result. If your SOP cannot take another team member, put them in and get the same result, then we got to fix the SOPs. So SOPs are centralized information for your team. They prevent key processes from living in somebody's head. Do you have a team member who you're like, I cannot lose Jeff. If I lose Jeff, we're going under. Then Jeff holds the keys to the kingdom. We then need to ask Jeff to create an SOP on everything Jeff does, just in case Stephanie needs to hop in and help him out, replace him, have them elevate within the organization. Hang on. And one last thing here. I have always maintained, and I need to get better at communicating this. I am in process of communicating this better. Every team member that I'm fortunate enough to hire and work with today, every single one of them has dreams and hopes of upward aspiration. That's incredible. But I need to be very clear and say, the only way that you move up and out of a current position is if your SOPs are so airtight that you can hire somebody, train them to do your job so you can work on the next thing. If we have not dialed in those SOPs to such that degree to train and hand the reins over, then there's nowhere else for you to move until this is done and complete. So if you're thinking, well, what kind of SOPs should I be having? I want you to have SOPs for your SOPs. Let's be real. Podcast inbox management. When we're getting inquiries to be on my podcast, we have a specific flow. Speaking request management. If I'm being asked to speak at an event, this is exactly our protocol. This is when we should be emailing. This is when we should be following up. This is when we should be sending the contract. This is when we should be getting the deposit. Creating new list segments in Active Campaign. We need to be able to have another team member come in, follow the SOP, and create new list segments. Building and tracking UTMs, our universal tracking method, writing resource center articles. All of our resource center articles are standardized. They all look the same. They sound the same. They come from the same cadence. We've optimized how somebody gets the best result. Now we want to follow that. Project management standards, requesting time off is an SOP. So if you feel a little bit intimidated, I have to tell you, back in my day, when we started doing SOPs, we didn't have AI. I literally sound so old. AI is going to change the game for how you create SOPs. What would take somebody 2 weeks to create an SOP, I highly doubt it would even take somebody now 2 hours. So record a screen share video of doing what it is you do. So let's take that example of creating a list segment in Active Campaign. You're recording yourself doing the steps of creating that. And then you can have AI create an SOP for you. So I want you to check out Loom or Tango. These now offer recording a video and then AI generates the exact steps that somebody needs to do. Y'all, you're welcome. Our last and final step before we get into Q&A, I want to make sure that we're tracing just well on time. Step 5 is to schedule a 60-minute quarterly check-in for you to review operational efficiency over the last 3 months. What you want to focus on is asking yourself, how do I move away from the Wild West? How do I move away from being the micromanager? So the questions you're going to be asking yourself as you're checking in is, what am I doing right now as a CEO that I don't need to be doing? Who can I train on the team and delegate this to? Another question, what is taking so long? How many meetings am I in? How many emails must I be responding to? What can I do to shorten the amount of time? And every time somebody on the team had said, no, we need to have a 30-minute meeting for this. And I pushed back and I said, great, well, I am only going to be on that meeting for 15 minutes. If you would like to carry the meeting beyond that, because I'm trying to be open and get a cadence of what the team really needs. When I left that meeting at 15 minutes, the meeting was done. So it is okay for you to start putting what people call unreasonable standards as you start realizing that your time is the most valuable thing that you need to do because you're optimizing your cash flow and you're staying true to the vision. So what I want you to do is to take time to reflect and reallocate time that enables you to stay in control of your time. Reallocate to stay in control, because what we don't want is our time controlling us. So now that we've gone through all of this, I know that we're just starting off this first session here and you're like, this was, Jasmine, it felt like it was very repetitive. Right. But the basics matter. And if it cannot happen overnight, and this 5-step framework will not happen overnight, if it cannot happen overnight, it means that many people aren't doing it. I saw a documentary with Kobe Bryant, and there was a coach who said, can I follow you on a day so I can see your training regimen? And Kobe said, sure, absolutely. So the coach came and watched Kobe practice for 2 hours at 5 o'clock in the morning. And Kobe was going to go back later in the day for another practice. And so at the end, the coach went up to Kobe and said, well, that was great, but it wasn't what I expected. And Kobe said, well, what did you expect? And he said, well, I just saw you like dribbling up and down the court. I just saw you practicing free throws. I just saw you practicing 3-pointers. Like I was expecting something else. And Kobe said, if I don't become the best at the basics, I'll never become the best in the game. And so as we're scaling towards 8 figures and 9 figures, you have to remember that if you're not mastering the basics, you will never be the best in the game. Because what we need to do is we need to focus on the work by gaining back our time, because we understand that the work that we do now, it will pay dividends in the future. I don't want to have a Wild West business. I don't want to be a micromanager. I don't want 7 people reporting to me because I'm never working on the business. Because you cannot run an 8-figure business like it's a 7-figure business. Every interview, every research that I have done, people have said, when you're doing over 10 million, your whole job is to ensure the health of the team is great. Because when you have your scalpels, when you have your A players, when you have your top leaders running the organization, managing their initiatives, managing the team, building up those SOPs, now you're going to say, how do I get us to 100? And that's where 100% you spend your time on growth and maximization because you've built out the team. So you have to create and enforce those systems if you want to free up your time to know that you can work on the business and not just in the business. So our next live class is going to be July 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard. We're going to be focusing on how to streamline your processes so you're scaling to 8 figures. What we just focused today was the creation of the systems, going back into the basics so that we can what? Streamline them and scale. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to get into Q&A, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to do this thing that you love and that you call your own. Okay, so this comes from Moni. I'm stuck at 6 figures and have SOPs. What do you suggest? Well, we will likely be having a different series. There's too many answers to this one question. If you're stuck in your 6-figure business, we need to spend that time with 6-figure entrepreneurs. I have a ton of information about this on the podcast. You know what we can do? Rosie and Katie are here watching. What if we come up with a resource center article or a response? Anybody who's watching this in your 6 figures and this seems a little bit too advanced, or you're like, I'm not quite there yet. What we're going to do is we're going to come up with a few podcasts that we can point you to, blog posts or newsletters that we think are going to start you off there. And if we have a 6-figure series in the future, what I will ensure to do is make sure that we're addressing the possibilities of why you're stuck at the 6-figure mark if you have SOPs. There's just way too many answers here. And I think it would be honoring to your question if we went deeper in that regard. A question from Kelly. My team communicates in all different ways and places. How would you suggest resetting their expectations? How hard should I be on them if they don't do what I ask because they like their old way better? So, first and foremost, it's going to be really important for you to outline what you see is the breakdown in communication, because your team is looking to you so that they can trust that you adequately see the situation for what it is. So if you say, there's been a breakdown in communication because we have some people communicating in X, Y, or Z, and then you say, would you agree with that? Most likely the team, if they're objective and they're saying, yeah, we do communicate in lots of places. They don't know it's a problem yet. You haven't said that. You're just getting their buy-in. What I see is we communicate in X, Y, and Z. And a lot of people are saying different things and we're not on the same page. And they're like, yeah. And then you're saying, so what I see is a breakdown of communication and we're not running as efficiently as we possibly can. I have a few ideas on how we might be streamlining communication. But before I share them with you, if you have ideas, I want to hear them from you. So the way that I would do this, I would go into on a team meeting or in Slack, I would send a video in advance. This is what I've seen. Breakdown in communication because we're communicating in X, Y, and Z. I have ideas that I want to present to you, but I want to hear from you first. And then what you do is say, I'd love to hear your ideas in Slack or bring them to the meeting, whatever you think is going to be best for your team at that time. Let's say the team comes to you and says, oh, well, we can do X, Y, or Z. They probably will be giving you great ideas. And then from your way, you say, great, I'm going to take all of your information, but what I have seen and what I would like is for us to communicate in the following ways. So I'm going to share with you exactly how we do it on our team. This is a real life example. We use Notion as our wiki. Notion, AKA, is our hub. It's the Bible. This is where we start all of our big projects. This is where we have SOPs. This is the master document that is the air traffic control of the business. But we use Asana to have a digital to-do list of what to do. And then we use Slack to communicate. All communication exists in Slack. So I am not going into Notion and leaving a comment or a question. I might highlight a section and say, Katie, this is what I'm referring to. But I go to Slack, I tag Katie, hey, Katie, what I noticed in Notion, according to this doc, was X, Y, and Z. What do you think is happening here? Then we go through, and so that the whole team has eyes on it. And then we can tag a project manager. Hey, project manager, what we're going to need is we're going to need a series of tasks kicked off in Asana so that we don't repeat this. And this is what's going to happen in Notion. So there was a time where communication was happening in a lot of different places. So we had a team meeting. We said, this is our new communication mode. And then what we did as a team, I said, we're going to need to change behavior. So anytime you see somebody veering off in behavior, kindly remind them of this meeting and say, we're going to follow our new protocol. So real life example, when we introduced Notion, we started using Notion in 2020. Prior to that, we were only using Slack and Asana. So when we introduced Notion, people were like, oh no, another tech, another thing for us to learn. I get it, but you want to know what? The promise of us working faster and better and ever being communicated with was the goal. I said the result is faster work, better teamwork. And they're like, great. So whenever somebody was tagging in Notion, the person they were tagging would go back and say, hey, just as a reminder, can you put this in Slack? Or if somebody went in and said, hey, Whitney, I tagged you in Notion, then it's on Whitney to say, can you bring the question here so we can discuss it so everybody can see it? We were always just reminding ourselves, this is the new system. And then my job was to say, hey, I see a lot of comments in Asana on this task. That's great. But what I need you to do is go back in Slack. I need a recap of this conversation. I need you to tag who was involved with it so we have all eyes and accountability. It is literally just reprogramming the way that we work, but you have everybody's buy-in, and then everybody needs to hold each other accountable. Let me know if that works for you. Okay, Laura, can you speak anything you learned specifically with streamlining your content creation, being the face of the brand? I'm swamped in my SaaS. I hardly have time for content. Yes, and I don't think that my answer is right. It's just the answer I have. And I will say that I have a high threshold for quick work. I work fast and I think fast, and I have an extreme amount of pressure that nobody puts on me. I just put on myself. And so if I am saying my priority is to build a SaaS company, and my priority is saying, well, I need to create marketing pieces and personal branding pieces and educational pieces. And if working out is a priority, and if creating time for my daughter in the morning is a priority, and I'm saying, wow, I have a lot of priorities here. The question isn't, what do I drop in my priorities? My question is, what behaviors do I have to change to ensure I'm hitting everything? And for me, the behaviors I changed were I'm waking up earlier and I am doing less social activities. I don't take pride in saying, oh, I don't do girls' weekends. I'm not the person you call to say, let's meet up at Starbucks for our Frappuccino. I don't take pride in saying I don't do group vacays with the friends. I don't take pride with that. It's just what has transpired. And making content for me is batched 3 days a month. And it used to be 2. And now as I'm expanding into new projects and markets, I added another content day. I don't want to do another content day. I don't like doing content days. But what I really like is building multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses. So if that's my aspiration, I'm going to do things I don't want to do to get results that I want. Didn't want to do it? Happy I did. I don't want to batch content 3 times a day. Do you want to know how much work I could get done in a full day if I wasn't batching content? A lot. Do you want to know that I won't get results without the content? Because without content, people don't know how to talk about your business, see the iterations of your business, or see the value of your business. And so when you're saying, I feel stuck, no problem. One of 2 things has to happen. You got to let go of content, or you got to step back from the SaaS, or you have to have your personal life look different than it currently does. There's not a right or wrong. There's not a right or wrong, but I can only speak to the path that I took to get the results that I wanted. And I will say that as I was building my SaaS offering, I enrolled into an educational program on how to build a SaaS company. And I spent so much time in that group. It was like a mastermind. And I grew more as a SaaS founder in that year than probably it would have taken me 5 or 6 years. But I was doing work every single day and being a part of a mastermind with places to ask questions or think differently or say, oh, well, you don't have a SaaS company that looks like mine, but that's how you're doing it. Or, oh, you have a sales team. What does it look like? We have a different type of funnel because we go after volume. We don't go after, B2B. And so learning in that really opened my mind to seeing how I can grow faster. And so now I'm really happy that I can start incorporating small elements of my personal life back in, because for a while we restricted for premium growth. And now I can come back and ease up a bit on it and start incorporating things that I had cut out. I hope that helps. Okay, so Alicia, what strategy are you using for really creative team members who frequently veer off the vision and quarterly priorities? Oh man, if this ain't the realest real thing. Okay, I'm also seeing a couple people had asked if I am hosting a mastermind. I've hosted a mastermind in the past. I will be hosting another mastermind. We're not promoting it. It is not open, but if you want to be on the wait list, you can go to jasminestar.com/mastermind waitlist. And we'll just link it here in the comments. Again, we're not promoting that quite yet, and it's not available, but when the time comes. Creative team members. We love them. We need them. And sometimes they just drive us crazy. Here's the thing. As a creative myself, I started my career as a photographer. And the difference when I look back at my career versus myself and many other creatives was I had a very strong bent towards discipline. And when you tell a creative, oh, you got to be disciplined, it's like, oh, no, I buck against the discipline. But the way that I talked to myself around that was, I'm creating discipline around my art. I'm creating discipline around the creation process so that I can skimp and splurge when inspiration hits me. Because what happens is, as creatives, and I could say this as a creative, and I could say this having managed, worked, hired creatives, is what we want is inspiration is just going to find us. And then I'm going to fall into it. I'm going to get into the zone. I just need time to think. I need time for it to marinate. Yeah, me and you, kid, we all need that. But Stephen Pressfield said it best, is that inspiration is a muse who visits us only when we are working. Stephen freaking Pressfield. Yes, sir, that's true. That is right. That is correct. Inspiration only hits us when we're working. How many times, if you're a creative entrepreneur or you worked with a creative, have you heard, I woke up at 2:00 in the morning and I just got up and I started writing my novel. I painted my 18 by 14 foot painting. I brought out my camera and set up my lighting. No, of course not. What we want inspiration to do is to hit us at 2 p.m. in the afternoon after having an ice brew, after having a leisurely day of just being like, I'm going to pontificate and oh, it hit me. No, it doesn't work that way. And the beauty of having a conversation with a creative team member would be the following. Oh my gosh, I have a meeting that I'm 5 minutes late for. This is where we're going to close out. You tell them, I understand how important it is for you to be creative. But what I'm going to do is you are going to have latitude in your schedule for when inspiration hits. But what we need to do right now is we need to keep the train on the track. And when you're in control of that, you can choose to go off into a different track. But if you are not moving on the track, you will never find out where that creative venture will exist. Thank you. I am 5 minutes late to my next meeting. I can't wait to see you guys again in the next sessions.